Hey homies, it's the Tominator. So let's talk about this 2021 Legion Sports Fest that took place over the weekend. I've been trying to track down decent pics and footage, and this clip right here, courtesy of Milos Sarcev, which you can find on his Instagram, I'll put a link in the description, is some of the best you can find. The stream looked like garbage and wasn't worth reviewing, and a lot of the fan-based footage you see was taken from off angles that make it really difficult to judge. So that's why I went with this, because it's decent quality, good lighting, and more or less a straight-on viewpoint. So for the purposes of this video, I'm only going to discuss the top three, namely Shaun Clarida, Regan Grimes, and Sergio Oliva Jr. They were far and away the top guys in this show, and honestly for me, it boiled down to a top two, with Sergio a more distant third. In the front double biceps, I've got Clarida easily. Best arms in the show, not the biggest, obviously, but the best in terms of fullness, shape, and separation. His taper is good, the abdominals are defined, and the quads were shredded. After that, I probably gotta go with Sergio. Regan's arms are proportionately undersized and far too smooth. He's got some great serratus development, but could use a little more detail through the rest of the core. Perhaps flexing his abs would help in this shot, because he had the best midsection in the show, at least among this top call-out. His legs looked really good, but Sergio's got more mass, better arms, and a more prominent taper. Still, Shaun owns this one. It's shocking how well he stacked up next to open competitors, outweighing him by literally 70 to 80 pounds. I'm not sure about Sergio's stage weight here, but Regan was clocking in at around 255, while Shaun was only $175. Not to mention the huge height difference, with both of these guys right around the 6-foot mark, and Shaun only at 5'2". He truly earned his nickname, the Giant Killer. Before, it was a catchy tagline, sure, but it's hardly like you're beating quote-unquote giants in 212, when almost all those guys are 5'6" and under. But here in the open, laying a can of whoop-ass on a bunch of 6-footers, that's badass. Lee Priest must have been proud. Anyway, in the front lat spread, Clarida still looks great. If you scaled him up to like 5'9", 5'10", he's the second coming of Ronnie or Flex Wheeler. But unfortunately, size and stature do come into play a little more in the lat spreads. Because with the arms taken out of the equation, and in a pose that is predominantly about showcasing width and V-taper, I don't think you can give it to him. Conditioning-wise, yeah, he's still running away with it, but structure has got to count for something too. That's why I'm going with Regan Grimes. He's got a great X-frame and really fills it out nicely. Sergio looks alright, but doesn't saturate the shot enough. There's too much gap between his arms and his lats, and his upper body on the whole looks too soft, so he's third. The side chest I also give to Regan, although I can see the arguments for Shaun. Clarida's got the hardest lower body, but Regan's no slouch there either. Excellent glutes and a good balance through the hams and quads. What clinches it for me is Regan's chest, which is like twice the size of Shaun's. Oliva is also dwarfing him, but his conditioning wasn't good enough. Shaun made Sergio look like he was guest posing here. Turning around, you can see just how dry and dense the Giant Killer was. There wasn't an ounce of water on him, yet he still retained some remarkable fullness, with those bubbly delts and rippling back muscles. The glutes and hams were likewise peeled. Regan is close though, very close. His hamstrings are actually even more defined. You can see the separation there from top to bottom. Even Shaun doesn't have that. But his glutes were not as striated, nor his biceps as pronounced. Grimes is a really solid second here, but it's not quite enough. Shaun's just got too much quality muscle maturity combined with amazing fullness, whereas Regan was a little on the flatter side. The rear lat spread was tough to call. Again, it's more of a structural pose, which is Shaun's weakness, although he does look wider here than he did from the front. From a conditioning standpoint, he's the clear-cut winner, but he is literally getting dwarfed so badly, I wouldn't give it to him here. He still beats Sergio for all the extra detail, but Regan is close enough in terms of the conditioning that his overwhelming size advantage puts him ahead, though just barely. I like Regan's hamstrings and lower lats, which produce a thick shelf there in his lower back. Very impressive. The glutes and middle back could still be a little crisper though, but I'm really nitpicking now. This was easily Regan's best package to date, and it's becoming quite apparent that Milos Sarcev is a damn good coach. He brought Max Charles in some of the best shape of his life last year, and now he's doing the same with Regan Grimes. These are two very different bodybuilders at completely different stages of their careers, so hats off to Milos for getting it done. The side tricep is Clarida all day. I love how thick and massive his arm looks in this shot. His entire body is just covered with details, whether it's separations, striations, or vascularity, you name it, he's got it. Grimes still needs to pack some more mass onto those arms. If he does that and brings this type of conditioning, he'll be challenging for a top 10 spot at the Mr. Olympia. Yeah, I actually like this twisting version more on him. It plays up his aesthetics. He just needs to remember to fully flex the abs like Shaun Roden did. That's a crucial part of it. For the ab and thigh, I go with Grimy. Like I said, the best midsection in the picture, especially when you factor in that razor-sharp serratus. Not a hint of distension either. And his quads are very solid with some good separation. Clarida might one-up him in the thighs with all those gnarly cross striations and better outer sweep, but his midsection isn't quite as appealing in my opinion. There's too many times during this pose, as he's breathing and not flexing them 100%, where the abs look kind of faded, whereas Regan held it better. Sergio looked pretty good too. A little weak through the lower abs, but that may just be genetic, but his body started coming to life a little more there. As for the most muscular, Shaun is great on his own, but come on, he looks like a small child standing next to Sergio. All the quality in the world doesn't make up for that size discrepancy here in a pose that is primarily about mass above all else. Regan looks super aesthetic in the hands on hip, but he still needs to add a few more pounds to his frame to really nail this one. For me, this has got to go to Sergio. It's the first and only pose I give to him, but he looks great here. The arms are massive, the chest is big and broad, the abs are dialed in, and the quads balance it out. Could use a bit more separation maybe, especially in the upper thighs, but that's about it. He crushes it. So all in all, I had Shaun winning the 2 double biceps shots and the side try. He could have arguably won every pose though if you're mostly concerned with conditioning. Certainly the back lat spread was debatable, and ideally I would like to give that one a second look, but I gave Regan the 2 lat spreads, the side chest, and the ab and thigh, with Sergio taking the most muscular. So based on that, I probably would have given the edge to Regan here. I don't know, it was super close and might have been easier to call in person, but I can absolutely see why the judges decided to go with Shaun. He was more complete, fuller, denser, and hands down the most conditioned athlete on stage. So I'm not disappointed in this outcome at all. I'm actually happy for him because it's such a Cinderella story, with a guy who's nowhere near maxing out in 212, suddenly stepping up to the big leagues and not only being competitive, but knocking off all these other guys who outweigh him by 50 to 100 pounds. That's incredible. It truly was a David and Goliath type scenario. So what are your guys' thoughts on this one? Personally, for me, it was a close 2-man battle between Shaun and Regan, but then again, the judges gave Clarida perfect scores, so I guess it wasn't that close in their eyes. But I thought both of them looked sensational, and it made for a very intriguing contest. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and feel free to like and subscribe for more. Until next time, it's the Tominator signing off, and I'll be back.